Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to our Genesis chapter 19 study today. We're trying to study through every chapter of the Bible, one chapter at a time, one chapter a day, and to go all the way through and to create these little handy-dandy PDF printables for every chapter to keep as reference. They're free on our website. Now, you might say, do you just make so much money off of YouTube that you can give this stuff away for free? No. I make a little bit of money off of YouTube, but not nearly as much to cover not nearly enough to cover the operating expenses of this channel. In a large part, these are free because people have become patron supporters and have supported us in other ways to make these resources available for free so that anyone around the world can get a hold of them. And that's been my goal. I want to keep these free so that people can know God better. And so our supporters help us do that. And so if you're interested in that, there's a link down in the description. If you just want to download the handout, there's a link for that as well. Let's talk about Genesis chapter 19, though. When did the events of chapter 19 take place? Well, just like chapter 17 and chapter 18, this occurred during Abraham's 99th year of life. So a year before his son is going to be born. Spoiler alert, his name's going to be Isaac. But anyway, Abraham's actually not the main character in this chapter. Lot is the main character in this chapter. Lot was Abraham's nephew, and he lived in the city of Sodom, which was a very wicked city. Our next main character, or main characters, are two angels. These two angels had visited with Abraham at his tent with the Lord in the last chapter, but now they've come to Sodom, and they're going to warn Lot about the city's destruction. Our third main character is a group of people. It's the citizens of Sodom. They were, quote, exceedingly wicked sinners against the Lord, according to Genesis 13, verse 13. Our fourth main character is Lot's wife. She disobeyed God, and she got turned into a pillar of salt. And then our last main character are Lot's daughters. They escaped Sodom with Lot. We'll talk about that in a little bit. And then they bore Lot two children, which we'll also talk about that at the end of the chapter. So then we ask the question, where? Where did these events take place? You can check out the handy dandy map on the PDF or on the screen if you're watching on YouTube. Genesis 19 centers around the city of Sodom and the town of Zoar. Now, the exact location of these cities has been debated and researched, but nobody knows exactly where they were on the map. Most people think that they were somewhere around the southern end of the Dead Sea. So I have that highlighted there on the map. You can see kind of the general location. Now, for our outline, our first section in this chapter is just the first 3 verses. 2 angels visit Lot in Sodom. The 2 angels who had visited Abraham with the Lord in the last chapter, they made the journey to Sodom, and they told Lot that they were just going to spend the night in the town square. But Lot insisted that they spend the night in his house because Lot, he knew what the citizens of the town were like. And that leads us into our next section, verses 4 through 11. The immoral people of Sodom surround Lot's house. That night, all of the men of the city of Sodom surrounded Lot's house, and they demanded that the 2 guests in his home be brought out to them so that they could, quote, have relations with them. Now, Lot refused, and he even went so far as to offer the men his 2 daughters in order to protect his guests. But the men wouldn't take no for an answer, and they prepared to break down Lot's door. The angels that were inside, they reached out and they pulled Lot back into the house, saving him, and they struck the men outside with blindness. And then our third section, Lot and his family escape from Sodom, verses 12 through 22. The angels told Lot that he needed to gather his family and to flee the city because God was going to destroy it because it was so wicked. Lot tried to get his son-in-laws to listen to him and to flee with him, but they wouldn't listen. They thought that he was joking. And when the morning dawned, Lot hesitated to leave, but the angels seized him and his 2 daughters and his wife and brought them outside of the city. Lot was told to flee and to find refuge in a small town called Zoar. And he was told, what's the word I'm looking for? Explicitly, that he was not to look back as the city of Sodom was being destroyed. And then we read about God raining brimstone and fire down on the city of Sodom. This is verses 23 through 29. The text says that God, quote, rained brimstone and fire on Sodom and Gomorrah. That was another city. And it destroyed the city, destroyed the plants, and destroyed all of the people. Now, Lot's wife disobeyed the explicit commands of the angels, and she looked back as the city of Sodom was being destroyed, and God turned her into a pillar of salt. And then our final and kind of disturbing section, verses 30 through 38, Lot and his 2 daughters. So Lot was afraid to stay in the town of Zoar, and so him and his daughters lived in a cave in the mountains. Lot at this point was growing old, and he didn't have any male descendants to pass on his family name, so his daughters decided that they were going to get him drunk, sleep with him, and then try to conceive a son by him. Now their plan, however disturbing it may be to modern readers, it worked, and they gave birth to 2 sons. The eldest gave birth to a son whom she named Moab, and he became the father of the Moabite nation. The youngest daughter gave birth to Ben-Ami, the father of the Ammonite nation. That is how Genesis chapter 19 ends, and that's where we'll leave off for today. But let's talk about an application before we close. Surrounding yourself with ungodly people will make your life harder. If you remember, Lot was flourishing back during the time when he lived with Abraham, but his decision to move to Sodom and surround himself with wicked people ultimately ended up costing him his peace, his home, his family, and probably all, if not most, of his wealth. And the same is true for us. Surrounding ourselves with ungodly people may have certain benefits in the short term, but the negative effect of those people over the long term will have a detrimental effect on our lives and on our souls and on our families.